Most people have a plan for when things get bad. They have cash in a drawer. Some have a safe with gold coins in it. A few have a bug-out bag in the closet with gear they bought online and never tested. And almost all of them are going to be wrong. Not because their intentions are bad. Because they misunderstand what collapse actually looks like and what it demands from the people living inside it. Veterans who served in destabilized regions already know this. They watched it happen in real time. They watched currencies become worthless while something else, something most civilians walk past every single day, quietly became more valuable than anything in a bank account. And in this video, we are going to walk through exactly what that is. Not theory, not a blog post, documented history, military logic, and the same framework that kept people alive in Bosnia, in post-Katrina, New Orleans, and in the economic wreckage of Argentina. Stay with us until the end. Because the final answer is not what most people expect, and it is the one thing no amount of money can buy once the system stops working. Here's the first thing you need to understand about modern money. You do not actually have any. What you have is a number on a screen, maintained by a server, dependent on electricity, internet connectivity, a functioning banking system, and an unbroken chain of institutional trust that most people have never once thought about. 93% of all money in the United States exists digitally. It is not paper. It is not gold. It is arithmetic on a computer that belongs to someone else. The moment that chain breaks, not collapses, not disappears, just breaks, your access to that number stops. Hurricane Katrina proved this in 2005. Within 72 hours of landfall, ATMs stopped working across New Orleans. Card readers were dead. Bank branches were underwater or closed. The people who survived the first week were not the ones with the largest bank balances. They were the ones who had something useful: water, fuel, batteries, medical supplies, and were willing to trade it. Cash still worked for the first few days. Then it stopped working too. Not because paper money burned, because the stores that accepted it were empty, closed, or gone. This is the pattern that repeats in every major disruption on record. And veterans who operated in these environments already understand what comes next. The collapse timeline is not what Hollywood sells you. It is not a single moment where everything ends. It is a slow degradation that most people do not recognize until they are already inside it. In the first 3 days, cash still functions. Panic buying begins. Shelves start clearing in predictable order. Water first, then bread, then batteries, then everything else. People with cash feel secure. By day 4 through 10, the picture changes. Fuel becomes the primary concern. Without fuel, supply chains stop. Without supply chains, shelves stay empty. Cash still exists, but there is increasingly nothing to spend it on. By the second week, trust in the system starts fracturing. Prices spike on anything available. Barter begins quietly. Neighbor to neighbor, stranger to stranger. People stop asking what something costs. They start asking what you have to trade. By the third week, the shift is complete. Nobody cares what your bank account says. Nobody cares what your investment portfolio looks like. The only question that matters is a simple one. What can you do? And what do you have that someone else needs right now? This is the moment most people are completely unprepared for. And it is the moment veterans have already thought through. Before we get into the specific items and capabilities that replace cash, there is one idea you need to accept completely. Money is not value. Money represents value. In a functioning economy, that representation works because everyone agrees to it. The moment that agreement breaks down, the moment the system behind the money stops working, the representation becomes meaningless. What remains is the actual value underneath. An actual value, in a disrupted environment, is one thing: usefulness. The U.S. Army Field Manual 21-76, the Survival Manual that forms the foundation of military survival training, opens with a philosophy that most civilians never encounter. The environment is your supply depot. It means that trained people do not wait for resources to arrive. They identify what is available, they understand how to use it, and they convert their surroundings into what they need. SEER training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, builds on this same foundation. The most valuable person in a disrupted environment is not the wealthiest person. It is the most useful person. Veterans already know this. Here is what that means in practical terms. The first thing that replaces cash is the ability to produce clean water. Not stored water, the ability to produce it. This distinction matters more than most people realize. Stored water has a fixed quantity. When it runs out, it is gone. Purification capability is renewable. A 1-gallon jug of standard household bleach, sodium hypochlorite at 6% concentration, treats approximately 4,000 gallons of water when used correctly. That is not a survival item. that is a commodity. Pool shock, calcium hypochlorite, at 68%, is even more concentrated and has a shelf life of up to 10 years when stored properly. In the siege of Sarajevo, which lasted from 1992 to 1996, it became the longest siege of a capital city in modern warfare. Clean water was one of the first things civilians lost reliable access to. The people who understood water purification, who could make water safe to drink from compromised sources, had something to offer that everyone needed and almost nobody could provide. They traded that capability for food, for medicine, for protection. The people who had stored water watched it run out and had nothing left. The lesson is simple. Capability outlasts stockpiles. Every time. The second thing that replaces cash is medical relief. Not a first aid kit, the ability to reduce pain, treat infection, and manage medical emergencies without a functioning healthcare system. This matters for one reason that most prepper content never addresses directly. People make irrational decisions when someone they love is in pain. A parent with a sick child will trade almost anything for medication that works. An elderly person with a chronic condition will trade significant resources for the supplies that manage it. Over-the-counter ibuprofen, antihistamines, anti-diarrheal medication, electrolyte powders, and wound care supplies become extraordinarily valuable within the first week of any extended grid failure. Veterans with medical training, combat lifesaver certification, field medic experience, even basic trauma knowledge become essential people in disrupted communities. Not because they have gear, because they have knowledge that most people desperately need and cannot replicate. If you have any medical background at all, that knowledge is more valuable than anything you can buy. If you do not, basic wilderness first aid training is one of the most high-leverage preparations any person over 40 can make. The third thing that replaces cash is fire and energy. In the siege of Sarajevo, residents reported that a single working lighter could be traded for humanitarian aid supplies worth significantly more in pre-war terms. This is not surprising to anyone who understands how quickly energy dependencies become apparent when the grid goes down. Cooking requires heat. Warmth requires heat. Light requires power. Communication requires power. A standard Bic lighter produces approximately 3,000 ignitions on a single fuel load. At under $1 per unit in bulk, no other item offers comparable utility-to-cost ratio for barter purposes. Battery-powered devices become critical within the first 24 hours. Rechargeable battery systems, AA and AA, banks, paired with a small solar charging panel, represent a renewable energy service in an environment where everything else is depleted. The person in a disrupted community who can recharge batteries, repair a generator, or restore basic electrical function to a critical device becomes more valuable than anyone with a full wallet. Power is infrastructure. Whoever controls small-scale power infrastructure in a grid-down environment holds a position of significant leverage. The fourth thing that replaces cash is what historians call the addiction economy. This is documented in every major conflict and economic disruption on record. In World War II prisoner of war camps, cigarettes became the primary currency among prisoners, regardless of nationality. In the siege of Sarajevo, survivor accounts describe a pack of cigarettes buying enough humanitarian aid to feed a family for days. The reason is straightforward. Stress does not eliminate addiction. It amplifies it. In a high-stress, long-duration disruption, the demand for tobacco, alcohol, and caffeine does not disappear. It increases in many cases dramatically. The supply of these items, however, collapses almost immediately. Miniature 50-milliliter liquor bottles, the kind sold at convenience store counters for under $1 each, function as standardized barter units in disrupted economies. They are sealed, tamper-evident, and represent a known quantity of a commodity with consistent demand. This is not a moral recommendation. It is documented economic behavior from real events with real survivors. High-proof alcohol also has legitimate applications in disrupted environments, antiseptic use, fire starting, food preservation, that make it doubly valuable beyond its psychological role. Tobacco in bulk form, pouches of rolling tobacco, stored properly, maintains viability for extended periods and functions as a divisible barter commodity in the same way small denomination coins function in a normal economy. Bulk coffee and caffeine supplements round out this category for people who prefer not to deal in alcohol or tobacco. The demand is real. The history is documented. The cost to prepare is minimal. The fifth thing that replaces cash is the one that the Argentina crisis of 2001 illustrated most clearly: repair. When the Argentine peso collapsed in December of that year, millions of citizens formed barter clubs called truque, where goods and services were exchanged using a local complementary currency called credito. By May of 2002, there were 5,000 barter nodes across the country with 2 million members. And the most valued participants in those networks were not the people with the most goods. They were the mechanics, the electricians, the seamstresses, the builders, and the plumbers. Because in a world where supply chains are broken and new goods are unavailable, maintaining and repairing what already exists becomes the primary economic activity. A working vehicle becomes critical infrastructure. The person who can keep it running eats before the banker. A functioning generator becomes essential. The electrician who can repair it commands whatever terms they want. A broken water line becomes a community emergency. The plumber with the right knowledge solves it and collects accordingly. Skills in repair and maintenance are not backup capabilities in a disrupted environment. They are primary currency. The sixth thing that replaces cash is food production capability. Stockpiles end. This is not a pessimistic statement. It is arithmetic. Every can of food, every bag of rice, every freeze-dried meal has a finite quantity. When it is gone, it is gone. Seeds are not finite. One packet of heirloom seeds, non-hybrid, open-pollinated, produces a harvest that produces more seeds, which produce more harvests. The distinction between consumer and producer is the most important long-term economic divide in any extended disruption. Consumers deplete, producers generate. In the third week of a significant disruption, the person with a functioning kitchen garden has something to offer that renews itself. The person who stockpiled but cannot grow has a diminishing asset and an eventual deadline. Preservation, knowledge, canning, dehydrating, fermentation multiplies this advantage. The person who can produce food and extend its shelf life holds a position of compounding value in a disrupted community. This is why the prepper who grows wins the long game. Every time. The seventh thing that replaces cash is the one that almost no survival content addresses directly. Trust networks. No one survives a significant long-term disruption alone. This is not a philosophical statement. It is the conclusion of every documented collapse on record. Sarajevo survivors describe informal networks of neighbors who shared information, resources, and security responsibilities. Argentina barter clubs were not just economic structures. They were trust networks, communities of people who knew each other, vouched for each other, and created reliable exchange relationships in an environment where strangers were dangerous. Veterans understand this instinctively. Military units do not survive through individual heroism. They survive through coordinated action, shared information, and mutual accountability. In a disrupted civilian environment, the person who has built relationships, who is known, trusted, and considered reliable has access to resources and options that isolated individuals cannot obtain at any price. Information becomes currency in disrupted environments. Who has fuel? Where water is available? Which routes are safe? Which people can be trusted? This information flows through trust networks. The person inside those networks has options. The person outside them has only what they personally stockpiled, which has a fixed quantity and an expiration date. Which brings us to the final answer. The one thing that replaces cash after collapse. The one thing that veterans already know. That the prepper industry cannot sell you. That no amount of money can buy after the fact. Knowledge, not information. Knowledge, the internalized, practiced, immediately applicable understanding of how to solve the problems that disrupted environments create. How to purify water, how to manage a medical emergency without a hospital, how to repair critical systems, how to produce and preserve food, how to build and maintain the trust relationships that enable community survival. A stockpile gets smaller every day you use it. Knowledge compounds. Every application of knowledge produces more capability, more confidence, and more value. The SEER training philosophy that U.S. military personnel learn is built on one foundational idea. You are the survival system, not your gear, not your stockpile. Not your bank account. You, your knowledge, your skills, your ability to assess a situation and produce a useful outcome from available resources. This is what veterans already understand. This is what the collapse timeline makes obvious, usually around day 21, when it is too late to learn. Most people spend their preparation budget on objects. The prepared person spends their preparation effort on capability. In a functioning society, money buys value. After collapse, you become value. The question worth sitting with tonight is a simple one. If the system stopped working tomorrow, if the cash stopped spending, and the cards stopped working, what problem could you solve for the people around you? That answer is your real net worth. Drop it in the comments. And if this changed how you think about what preparedness actually means, subscribe because the next video covers the specific items veterans quietly stockpile before any crisis hits. The ones that are already gone from shelves before most people know there is a problem.